There's a specific kind of feeling that hits sometimes. An old photo surfaces, one you haven't seen in years, or a song comes on unexpectedly from a time you'd almost stopped thinking about. Or you drive past a place that used to mean something, and for just a moment, everything about that period feels close and vivid and irretrievable. Simpler, warmer, like life had a texture back then that it quietly lost somewhere along the way without you noticing. And you find yourself thinking, it was better then. Not dramatically, not with grief necessarily, just a quiet, settled conviction that something about that time was more real, more alive, more yours than what you're living now. But was it actually better? Or is that just what the past looks like when the present is doing the editing? The strange thing about this feeling is how indiscriminate it is. It isn't reserved for people who had remarkable pasts, golden childhoods, peak years, chapters genuinely worth mourning. People romanticize periods they were stressed throughout, relationships they were relieved to leave, towns they couldn't wait to escape, years they would never rationally choose to return to. And yet, in retrospect, something about those times glows, which is the first clue that this isn't really about the past at all. If rosy retrospection were simply accurate memory, the brain faithfully retrieving genuinely good times, it would be selective. It would track quality. It would distinguish between the periods worth romanticizing and the ones that don't hold up to scrutiny. It doesn't. It applies the same warm filter almost regardless of what actually happened. So the question isn't just, why do we miss the past? It's something sharper and more interesting. What is memory actually doing when it makes the past glow? In the early 1990s, psychologist Terence Mitchell and his colleagues ran a series of studies on how people remember experiences over time. They tracked students before, during, and after significant events, a Thanksgiving trip, a summer in Europe, a spring break vacation. What they found was consistent and quietly unsettling. People's evaluations of these experiences improved after they ended, not because the experiences were better than expected, in many cases they weren't, but because memory, given time, systematically softened the difficult parts and amplified the pleasant ones. The anticipation before the trip was often higher than the experience during it, but the recollection afterward was higher still. They called it rosy retrospection. The past, remembered, is reliably rosier than the past, lived. There's also something called fading effect bias. The brain doesn't store emotional memories neutrally. The negative charge attached to difficult memories fades faster than the positive charge attached to good ones. Embarrassments lose their sting. Frustrations lose their weight. What remains, over time, is a version of events that has been quietly restructured, the edges smoothed, the difficult middle compressed, the best moments somehow more vivid than they were at the time. This isn't a flaw in an otherwise accurate system. It's the system working as designed. The brain isn't a recorder, it's an editor. And like any editor, it shapes material toward a particular end, a narrative that is coherent, bearable, and livable. Nostalgia isn't a window into the past. It's a construction, built in the present for reasons the present requires. But here's what the psychology doesn't fully say out loud. Romanticizing the past is rarely just about the past. It's about what the present lacks, or more precisely, what the present demands. Uncertainty, effort, unresolved questions, the particular pressure of a life still in progress, still asking things of you that you haven't answered yet. The past is safe in a way the present can never be. It's already survived, already edited, already resolved into something with a shape. You know how that chapter ends, which means it can't disappoint you anymore. The present doesn't offer that. The present is still open, still contingent, still capable of going wrong. So when the present feels directionless or heavy or quietly overwhelming, the brain reaches backward toward a time that feels settled, even if the settling is entirely retrospective, even if you were just as lost then, just as uncertain, just as unresolved, and simply don't remember it that way anymore. Nostalgia, in this light, isn't memory. It's avoidance with a warm filter applied, and the past it reaches for never quite existed. So, understanding that nostalgia is constructed doesn't make it feel constructed. The pull is real, the warmth is real, the sense of loss is real, even if the thing being lost was never quite what you remember it being. But it does shift the question. Away from how do I get back there, which was always an impossible destination anyway, and towards something more honest and more useful. What is the present asking of me that I'm not yet willing to face? Because that's what the backward glance is usually covering. Not a genuinely better time, but the discomfort of a life still in progress, still unresolved, still demanding. The past glows because you survived it, because it's finished, because it can't ask anything of you anymore. The present can, and does, and that's precisely what makes it harder to be in.
You should watch this video next. I think you will like it.